My name is Jane Jagd, and I am the Director for Net Zero Finance within Women Business Coalition. I work in the space between non-financial companies, try to make them make ESG reporting which is useful for the investors, and then I work also in the finance universe to make them start using the reports from the non-financial companies. We are a coalition of 7 NGOs, so we are worldwide, of course, but we also, of course, have a great attention on the European legislation. Actually, the DMA is done in many different ways, but one of the advices I usually give to companies is that it's extremely important that they are clear on what kind of plan they have and what kind of principles they will apply. And that also goes for which thresholds they will use. And once they have this plan and these principles in place, then they should have a dialogue with their auditor. And the reason is it is so much easier to get the assurance once you are in agreement that this is a good plan. Otherwise, you might end up in something that takes a bit longer than you anticipated. Many companies actually, especially the large listed companies, they already get assurance. So they do know their ESG auditor. It's not any different for them. But for all the companies, all the large unlisted companies, they do not necessarily have any assurance today. And for them, this is probably a completely new way of working. So that will probably also need a cup of coffee. One of the things I discovered when we were reading all the reports for the CSRD Early Adopters report was that it was striking how many companies who had, on one side, in their double materiality assessment, they had, for instance, climate as really high, both for the company and for the stakeholders. So it was in the far right corner in the diagram of the double materiality assessment. But then you turn a few pages and you go to the enterprise risk management chapter in the same report, and you cannot see anything on climate. And that is odd. And I think it is important for both the preparers and their auditors to consider how odd this looks for the investors, that on one side it is highly material, on the other side is not considered. Maybe, I think sometimes at least, this is a matter of that the companies have not integrated the sustainability reporting into all the teams in the company. And I do know that, for instance, enterprise risk management very often is made by financial people. And if these two teams do not talk to each other, then we have an issue. So probably they should start by having a meeting and have a chat. How can we ensure that this is working? Another thing they should consider is that DMA is done prior to the reporting year typically, whereas the enterprise risk management reporting is done late in the year. So what they should consider is that the DMA is input to their enterprise risk management. It's again back to which sector they are in, depends on also how mature they are, how they will identify their stakeholders. What I sometimes see is that companies are really good at co-working, especially within their own industry. So they identify who is it really that we need to talk to, who are our primary stakeholders. That is one way of doing it. We sometimes also see, and that is really bold, when customers of the same supplier, they group up and say, now we want to have a stakeholder engagement with this supplier. And they do that together because it's so much easier both for them, but of course also for the supplier, that there is only one dialogue, but it is working for all the companies who have to have that dialogue with that supplier. So that is also a way that the company should perhaps consider that they can group and do some of these engagements together. That is difficult, and that is the crux of the entire CSRD reporting. You don't know when enough is enough. but you have to use your common sense. And I'm pretty sure we will also see that over the next 2 or 3 years, there will be some common ground. We will have made some practice. But I'm also sure we will see some which are less fantastic. But that is how it is. And as long as the company is transparent about what their principles were and how they did it, that is much, much more important than it was super and perfect the first shot. It's way more important that they are transparent about what they did and how they did it. For some companies, it is inbuilt, but for many companies, it is actually not. And we can see it also, especially in those companies where they have not necessarily found the financial impacts from various assets which may be stranded. We cannot see that. So if this strategy is not included, you cannot see that connection also in all the notes, also in the financial notes. And that is a problem, of course, for the companies. I would like to say one thing to both the companies and to their auditors. Consider to make a prepared by client list. You have them financially, continue to do that, extend them so they also cover the CSRD reporting and the taxonomy reporting or whatever you will have to assure. Because in that way, both the preparer and the auditor will know exactly what to expect. And that will make the assurance process a lot shorter, and nobody will be frustrated because they know exactly what to expect and who will have to do what. The trouble is today that many of the transition plans are actually already made. They're several years old perhaps, and that is some of the issues we see. We can also foresee that many companies will probably have to do restatements of their data because they were defined differently. So when they have plans, when they have commitments, when they have, for instance, also science-based targets, they may have been made based on the old way that the company did this. So they will probably have to restate some things, and it may actually also affect some of the plans they had. So they might be tweaked a bit. It might not necessarily be a total restatement of the plan, but they might have to consider that will have an impact. And that is, of course, very sad that is how it is. But it's more important that they make the restatement so that they ensure that it's actually compliant with the law. Companies should see the entire Green Deal reporting exercise as more than just an exercise. They should also see that all the legislations actually fit together. The taxonomy fits with the CSRD fits with the CSRD. So there are certain bits and bobs which fits together, and they have to see it together. That is very important to understand how can we benefit from all this new legislation.